welcome everyone to another exciting episode of Free to Speak. We are Bobby and Paul, and we are here to discuss some of the most, contentious issues of our time, or have we kind of moved away from contention? We've kind of shifted a little bit in our focus over the last year.
I guess, so? Yeah, we started a bit of to the political atmosphere in the moment, and we tried to touch the things that were very contentious in the time. But over time, we've been a bit mild and just talking about any kind of social topic that we feel is pertinent.
Yeah, we did do a discussion last time on AI.
Yeah,
and I don't know if you've noticed that one hasn't gotten as much traction as some of our other ones.
Yeah,
so,
I don't mind. Yeah, as long as we have our opinions out there.
Yeah,
you never know who it helps. So
yeah, that's true. So a while back, last year we did a series of videos about abortion.
Yep.
And then we had a subscriber. I mentioned this in a video we did a couple months back. Maybe it was longer than a couple months. Maybe it was 3 months. I'm losing track of time.
It's like 2 months back.
2 months, yeah, 2 months back. We had a subscriber who was binge listening to all of our episodes.
I like the part of binge listening.
Yeah, well, he was working out in the gym.
All right.
He was working out in the gym, and he said that our voices were kind of helping him to focus. Or we kind of have, I don't know if it's relaxing voices, but kind of helping him focus. But
okay.
You're working out, you're listening to our videos. And he was particularly impressed with the abortion videos that we did. We did maybe 3 or 4 about abortion. Maybe it wasn't that many.
Like 2?
2? Sure. We did at least 2 main ones, but I think we did 2.
Yeah, but maybe we would certainly talk about it in that topic.
But then we came back and we briefly talked about it, and then we had another video where we were answering questions.
Yeah,
so we had actually responding to comments, I think. So I think totally we did 4 videos, but not the whole video. We did 2 that were fully dedicated. But, so he was really was impacted by those videos. So he ended up sending us some cards that were put together by somebody called the Vulgar Buzz.
Okay.
And we had discussed these cards. And there's a website you can go to, What Would Female Fetuses Say? That's been put together by a woman named Miriam, who stumbled across these cards that the Vulgar Buzz, the woman who identified herself as the Vulgar Buzz, had put up. And then the site suddenly disappeared, but then she ended up re-putting the cards up. So this subscriber sent us these cards. And basically what these cards are is they're ultrasound images of fetuses. And these fetuses are saying, things like,
fetus sounds like it's plural, but it's actually not.
Yeah, fetus.
I see you're more articulate about it. You can say fetuses. May I find fetus as it's many, but it's actually
yeah. So it's an image of a female fetus, and there's all these things that the baby is saying, like, he wants you to abort, but he doesn't love you, so let's ditch him, mommy, and build a world of our own, kind of thing. That's not an exact quote, but it's something like that. And I forgot the cards again just before I was about to leave. I was going to grab the package with the cards.
Okay.
And I forgot the cards.
But we can
look them up on the website. But
they're tough.
Yeah, they're tough. I mean, let's see if we can find. Maybe we can find an example of a card here. I'm bringing one up on the laptop here. So, like, for example, one of them says here. Well, actually, there's these cards which were much more vulgar.
Like Vulgar Buzz.
Yes. And there's these kind of softer versions, which is what the cards are now.
PG rating?
And what was that?
The PG rating.
PG, yeah, the PG rated. So, for example, an example of a PG rated one is, but there's a picture of a fetus, and then the fetus is saying, the baby is saying, maybe if you would just shoot me, I might actually matter to the anti-gun folks who neurotically obsess over 2% of the humans murdered daily while ignoring us 98%. But there's the original, which is far more intense. Yes. And this one is just effing shoot me. Maybe then I will at least matter to the effing neurotic, obsessed, shit for brains, anti-gun assholes. I mean, it's intense. So they were far more vulgar from the start, but they were kind of softened in order for them to be released more to a general population.
Yeah.
Now I since learned that this subscriber has actually, because we talked about this when we actually talked with Miriam and Buzz. This subscriber who sent this to us has also sent these cards to 80 other different organizations. So we were one of probably over 80 groups or organizations or individuals that were sent these cards. But we're one of the few that have actually responded and we tried to bring Miriam and Buzz onto our show to talk to us, but they want to protect their anonymity. I'm a natural native speaker, and I cannot say that word, anonymity.
Exactly.
I have to constantly, yeah, I'm not having trouble saying that word.
Yeah. They want to maintain the anonymity.
Yeah, they want to be anonymous, and for understandable reasons, because to come out so strongly pro-life, you know, in the West, which is, you know, so strongly obsessed with abortion.
And the irony is that the reason what could be the reason why those other 79 people haven't responded is because the topic of abortion is quite hot.
Yes.
Yeah. So
they don't want to touch
people want to distance themselves, especially if you're talking towards pro-life.
Right. But we at Free to Speak are different.
Yeah.
So we're willing to touch things that other people aren't willing to touch. So what do we do? Well, we had we responded to the subscriber that sent us the package because Miriam and Buzz said that they were willing to talk to us and be anonymous.
Yeah.
And that we could arrange that through Farmer Fred, who was the one who had sent us the package.
Yeah.
So Farmer Fred arranged and set up a chat discussion where you, me, my wife, and a lawyer friend of yours named Lillian, we joined in on a WhatsApp group in which Farmer Fred also joined. And so Fred also had a separate chat going on with Miriam and Buzz, so that when they would communicate something to Farmer Fred or ask a question, Fred would pass it on into our chat, and then we would respond, and then Fred would pass on our response to them. Or if we had a question, he would pass our question on to them. And so for 2.5 hours actually, we had this chat discussion.
And I can see the lengths at which they had to maintain their anonymity. It just points to show that this topic is actually as sensitive as it can get.
Yeah. So what I would like to do, Paul, if this is okay with you, is let's go over the chat. I mean, let's talk about some of the things we talked about. There's a website, and I'll put it in the description for the video, so that people can go read this for themselves.
Okay. But even when you just Google and you put WWFFS, it's the first thing that you see. So
Google WWFFS. What would female fetuses say?
It's the first link.
It's really the first thing. Hopefully for you it'll be the first thing. Google kind of changes.
I know, according to location and all.
But it should bring it up, at least for now.
Yeah.
So I want to start out maybe by reading. The page starts out with Miriam's background. And Miriam starts out by saying, "Hi, I'm Miriam. I was sexually molested and had an abortion in my teenage years.
Yeah.
Miss Vulgar Buzz is an abortion survivor." And Miriam goes on to say, "Our unlikely collaboration began when I discovered the vulgarbuzz.com in 2023. I was intrigued because of my own experience. My girlfriends and I developed What Would Female Fetuses Say, so it's WWFFS.net, in September of 2024 as a result of pondering Miss Vulgar Buzz's work for several months. The Vulgar Buzz site disappeared in fall of 2023, and though we had tried to reach out to the site creator many times, she had covered her tracks well. We never connected. Until. There's actually a guy on TikTok who goes, until.
I know him, yeah.
So I wanted to say it like that.
Is it Raymond something? Or Raymond?
Yeah, I don't remember his name, but so maybe I'll say it like his. I'll plagiarize his stuff. Until.
Some people have got into trouble for plagiarizing.
I know, so we're just be careful about it. We're acknowledging where we're getting it from. So
yeah,
it's fair use. We're acknowledging we're not stealing it and claiming it's our own. But we're acknowledging our source, so we're not plagiarizing.
All right. Back to until. All right.
Until in December of 2024, we realized that the vulgarbuzz.com domain was available, and we immediately bought it and pointed it to one of our pages, who was Vulgar Buzz. Within 24 hours, we had an email from Miss Vulgar Buzz herself. And so they connected and they began to engage in these chats. And they've had these text chats which they posted on their website 7 times now. And we are chat number 8. So we're posted as chat number 8. And she goes on to say, this particular conversation is special because we are joined via text relay to our new friends, Bobby and Paul, and his wife Sharon in Uganda, and their Ugandan lawyer friend, Lillian. And then they go on to promote our YouTube channel and say a few things about that, and a couple episodes where we talked about what would female fetuses say.
Yeah.
And then the conversation started. So maybe what I want to do is kind of address some of the things that we talk about in here.
Maybe to give context, or like my perspective on how things were on this website or blog site, as we look at it, they have these ultrasounds of female fetus, quote unquote, basically pleading their case to be born or to be kept and not aborted, something like that. And the satire behind this would be that in a world where we are having women fighting for their rights, and it's very rare to find men fighting for men's rights, but then we have a wave of women fighting for women's rights. So the idea is that even so we take the satire is that, okay, even these females, much as they are grown-ups, they are violating other females' rights who are not yet born. So the females who are fetuses, if they were to be in the same place like them, they would also be, fighting for their own rights to life. That's why we have what would female fetus say. And if I'm to quote them right, or to paraphrase what they said in the chat, is that it's not necessarily that they do not care about the male fetuses, but it's just that the satire would come out better if we talk about female fetuses, given that even in the outside world, it's females who are fighting for their rights. So but it's basically the concept is the same even for male fetus.
So here's part of the chat. Buzz says, Paul mentioned trauma dumping in episode 40. So we talked about trauma dumping. This is precisely what my therapist recommended to me, and exactly what I did when I created the vulgarbuzz.com. Was I such a rare case that this dumping led to my eventual healing? And you responded by saying, trauma dumping is not an entirely safe practice, especially for either party, given the hurt one may not get relevant help if they open up to a person that is unable to be therapeutically relevant. So I'd only recommend this in a safe space like therapy or very trusted individuals that can be of meaningful value. Also, trauma dumping on an unsuspecting person might traumatize them as well. We call it vicarious trauma.
So maybe to come on that, when it comes to trauma dumping, it's basically someone having to maybe download the pain that they feel from an uncomfortable experience or a traumatizing experience. Now downloading that content somewhere. Some people dump they're basically able to express their feeling or push out that pain, let's say in writing. That's why I encourage sometimes people to do journaling. Myself, I do journaling, and when I'm feeling I'm overwhelmed by information, I journal it, and then when I feel like I've emptied my mind of what I feel about the situation, I'm able to now I summarize everything I've put in the journal and I make a poem out of it. So I also have a site which has my poetry, but usually it comes from my own trauma as a human being. So there are helpful, healthy ways of trauma dumping. I'm certain if you have very professional people, they would not like to hear the word trauma dumping because it's not encouraged. But we're using it in context that, okay, just to be able to associate with people who have had the word and then just maybe correct them on how to actually make it work. So if you can find a place to put your trauma, to dump it, to pour it out, it has to be a place that is going to have some meaningful therapeutic gain for you. That's why we said you can talk to a therapist, you can talk to a loved one that you can assess feel this person is interested in supporting me. Don't just tell anyone, because you could as well hurt them by the things that you tell them and they get overwhelmed, and then you have to seek people, or you could tell the wrong people and then they'll just make things worse. Mm-hmm. So while you are pushing the trauma, talking about basically narrating your trauma, you have to find a safe place to put it. And sometimes narrating your own trauma story may not necessarily mean you are giving the detail of the trauma, but sometimes we just have to, some people do it through art, and I draw an artistic impression of how I feel about an experience, and someone else may see it and not understand it, but if it helps me to push out my pain in that picture, it's helpful as well. So ways of dealing with trauma can be very many. And how did you get into trauma is because most females that have gone through abortions, we cannot rule out trauma. There's always a component of trauma. First of all, there's fear for loss of their own life. There's fear that there is a guilt of having to terminate a life. There is a grief of what could have been if this child were born, what kind of mother would have been to them, what kind of child would they have turned out to be. So all these fears and anxieties and the grief that comes with the losses, because the grief that comes with the loss constitute the trauma of the traumatic experience of abortion. So when someone goes through an abortion, they definitely need to deal with the traumatic end to it. When they don't deal with it, sometimes it can go away, but many a time they live with it for the rest of their lives, and it affects their decisions later. For example, some people may, after aborting, they may get pregnant very fast with a new person to try and feel less guilty, and then they end up getting pregnant for the wrong person. Sometimes some people will, even physically, you can have physical trauma from abortion and you're never able to have children again. So there are always consequences, both emotionally, psychologically, physically, when it comes to abortion. So the idea of finding a way to deal with the trauma that comes with it is important, or is very pertinent when you're discussing this topic.
So the second thing I want to talk about, Paul, Miriam also said Bobby and Paul, in one of your Free to Speak episodes, you brought up the double standard which gives men no say in their unborn children. We found this very insightful. Would you care to elaborate on that some more? Since our site is primarily focused on women and their female fetuses, such things don't naturally come up in our memes in our conversations, or in our conversations. Yet we of course believe with all of our hearts that the males aborted and men that lose babies to abortion are just as important. And then I responded by saying that the double standard is the idea that men have no say in whether women have an abortion, even if he is the father. It is totally the woman's choice. But the law will give him no choice but to support the child and pay child support if the child is born. I'm not suggesting that men should not support the child once it is born, only that the father should be involved at every stage, including before the child is born.
Yeah, and that's a very big ask. I don't know how far that can go, because the force is, the double standards are so hard. On one point is saying it's my body, my choice, and then at another point is you got me pregnant, you have to be responsible for the child. So the right or the fairness is not fairing per se.
Yeah. So, but we acknowledge that there is a double standard that does exist here.
Yeah, it is.
But the idea of kind of rising above that double standard is really, it seems like too big of a. It's something that's not going to. It's not something that's likely that's going to happen.
The thing is, probably if you look in the earlier, let's say 300 years ago, the rights of women, females, looks like they would never achieve, some of the milestones they've achieved. But how do we get there is that any contribution towards that end is meaningful. So more voices come on and they advocate for that. Subliminal, subtle, we get there.
Yeah.
Eventually we find that maybe 50 years from now, or maybe 10 years after we are gone, or 50 years after we are gone, we shall achieve that.
Okay.
By we, I mean human beings. The human race, not exactly Paul and Bobby.
Yeah.
We may be gone, but I believe at some point, this unfair standards, I think they will be checked eventually. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a poem. I call it "Today is Yesterday," and there's a line where I say, "Today is yesterday, just dressed in a different apparel," in the sense that every time we, let's say, many years ago, women were the ones hunted, were the ones trying to get their rights to be recognized and given back to them. And now the hunter is becoming the hunted. And now, while we try to solve some of the challenges the females have gotten, now we're going to have an uprising of men trying to fight for their own rights. Yet, so basically the whole point of today is yesterday, just dressed differently, because before it was the females crying, now it's now the men crying. So shall we always keep switching the roles of who is the hunted?
Yeah.
So men are now advocating very little voice out in the wilderness, like our own, talking about these men rights to their children, or for reproductive rights for the men. It is a very small voice in the desert, but eventually we shall get there. But we hope that now, when men fight back, it doesn't again compromise the rights that the women have got.
Right.
Because when the women fought, the men's rights have been compromised. So it doesn't mean that now when men fight back, we have to compromise. We have to always find a way of amicable way of dealing with things without, downplaying another person's or the opposite sides of perspective, something like that.
Okay.
I hope it comes out clearer.
Yeah. The third thing I want to talk about is Ugandan laws about abortion. We discussed abortion laws in Uganda. And according to the Ugandan constitution, there is a right to life. An abortion is technically illegal, but the law also permits for cases in which if a doctor says, hey, this is necessary, abortion then can take place. But then there's also hospitals here that perform abortion. So how much is the law really being enforced, and how easy is it to actually get an abortion here in Uganda? And Buzz asked a question. Is there evidence of people in Uganda traveling elsewhere, perhaps neighboring countries, to obtain an abortion because of the laws in Uganda that restrict it? And you responded by saying, it's not that deep yet, I think. The law is just for PR. Would you like to clarify, maybe explain a little bit more about what you mean by the law is just for PR?
Yeah, so basically when I say the law is just for PR, we have the law that where it has to be in sync with the global status quo, where we need to comply with what the world says so that Uganda is not ostracized among countries that are against that are abusing human rights, something like that. So some laws come up just to have us in synchronicity with the globe, but even the lawmakers may not necessarily be serious about them. It's just for the PR, like for the good image of the country, that oh yeah, we are with you, but we're not necessarily there. So there's an ambiguity. There is also the part of like governments have to an appeal that they have to make towards their own people, which sometimes may not appeal to the people that are pulling strings on a diplomatic level at the top, globally. So you find that we might satisfy the global audience with these laws, but then we do not implement them that far among our population, because we also have to appease our population. So you find that these laws, some of them are just handled.
I think the general sentiment within Ugandan society is to be pro-life.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why the Constitution says there's a right to life, but yet why do abortions still take place in Uganda, and why is there a provision in the law for when abortions can take place if there's a right to life in the Constitution?
I've not heard of a case where someone, let's say a lady or a man is caught for going through an abortion. Yeah, and even when you look at the Constitution, where it says, I may not quote it verbatim, but it says something like abortions, there's a right to life unless there's an unless where it's only permitted when something permitted by the law, something like that. So, and it's still ambiguous.
Yeah, right.
When it says unless provided for by the law, and that is where it stops. There's no other part where it elaborates what does it mean permitted by the law.
So then you can make different
laws. It's just
laws.
Open.
Yeah,
it's open.
I see what you're saying.
And there's no other law there's no, even the penal code is still not articulated. So it's just open. It's in the air. In other words, it can always be manipulated.
Yeah. Okay.
To help anyone out of the shithole in case you find yourself there. But you never hear of people being arrested for this or being sued for abortion. Right. Never, unless the mother dies.
Yeah.
The only time when these cases make any sense is when an abortion goes wrong and the mother dies, or she loses a lot of blood and is on the brink. Now that's when we come out. Okay, now this is illegal. But when it's successful, no one ever says anything. Even if, let's say, my girlfriend tries to abort or aborts and I feel so bad about it, there's nothing I can do. I might go to police and I'll look stupid, So these cases, maybe it can get worse, I don't know, but I don't think so. So these laws, they're there, but in themselves, they are very ambiguous. And I don't think they're ambiguous by mistake. I think they're ambiguous by design. Yeah.
All right. Then I guess we can wrap this up. I mean, there's a lot more things that we talked about, Paul, but it would take a lot of time for us to go
Maybe
this.
you post the link so
Yeah.
that in case someone wants.
And that's another thing is if we went over everything, there'd be no reason for anybody to actually go and read it for themselves. So
Yeah.
the link is below this video in the description. Go click the link, comment about it, let us know what you think. Let us know what you think of this.
You can also put the link, because I talked about a poem. I can give the link. You can also put that link in case someone has a poem. You can check it out.
Okay, yeah, so the link to Paul's poem is also in the description below. So feel free to go and let us know your thoughts about that as well.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to wrap this up, Paul, and we'll be back. We'll be back in another 7 days for another topic. So
good.
Bye for now.
Bye.